Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble. Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Ha ha! We caught it before it made its another loop around. All right. This is Kenny from TUNZ Records. I'm Kenny, and you're not. This is the Indie Show. Sean and I are going to be talking about a few things tonight. That was the teaser for Women, Whiskey, and Sin. That was put out in 1981 by Helix. It's been remastered by me, and we're putting that out on the 12th of this month. This Friday, we've got a bunch of music going out, and we'll be talking about that tonight. And before we get into all this stuff, I'm going to introduce my co-host with the most, the guy from the East Coast, Sean McKenna from the podcast, Barstools and Band Talk, Rim Shots with Sean.
Howdy. Ho. How's it going?
What's going on?
Oh, a little this, a little that.
What's weather like out there?
It was very nice today. Pretty nice evening tonight. Been nice the last couple of days, actually.
Yeah, it got up to 22, 23 degrees here today. And for those of you that are American, that'd be like high 70s, probably close to 80 degrees today. It was a beautiful day in the sun. I worked in a short sleeve shirt all day. I'm burnt. And I was doing a piece of boardwalk.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's a piece of boardwalk that sits in front of our one of our covered patios. So kind of a cool thing. I thought I'd add some wood to break up the concrete out there a bit.
Yeah, there you go. Let's as long as you're doing something.
I got to keep the dogs from digging too, right? So it gives them less places to dig.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to talk about digital music and the correlation between digital music sales and social media engagement, networking, all that stuff, because you're a guy who believes in networking big time.
My whole life is networking. It always has been. Everything I've done, anything that I've been able to do, any success that I've had, if I've had any, has been through networking. Plain and simple.
Yeah, and the cool thing about networking is that you get to meet so many different people, and not every transaction has to involve money.
Well, I think, and this goes way back to when I was, a career in sales in the early 2000s, where people mistake sales for networking. They think that if they network, they have to sell something. And you would be in an event and you would see a newbie, and there'd be this whole them doing the hard sell on something. And no, you're just making a friend. You're getting a contact, and you're following up at a later date. And I think that's where people get it mixed up.
I'm an ABC guy.
Always be closing. Yes. Well, there's something to be said for that sometimes.
Yeah, I the reason I guess I moved to the close is because I have so little time, right? And the thing is that if I can get people to engage on that and say, "Hey, listen, let's just move to the next step, okay? Let's speed date here."
Yeah, we call that the Ontario close. So people from Ontario that come down here and try to use that are often not very successful.
I'd like to speed date a little bit because, again, it allows me to get down to business and move forward. If I spend a lot of time courting people, of course, that takes time away from supporting all the artists that are already on the label.
Yeah, but
So,
in music as in life, you speed date so that you can spend time supporting other people that probably don't deserve the time. And I'm not saying that about anybody in particular, but I mean, I'm very, very, very. I'm a big believer that you have to do the networking piece correctly, because that's really, you lay that groundwork down properly, and the sale part of it is quite easy because people trust you, they get to know you, they know what you're about.
well,
And you,
and that's part of that return on investment that we're going to talk about tonight,
yeah,
right? I mean, there is a return on investment, and again, you need to spend time with people where where you're investing your time, you're going to get the biggest returns.
people are going to be your best and your worst resource, and your best and your worst investment, right? And um, again, I've learned that so much. I mean, I moved back from Toronto in 2000, and I immediately get into IT sales, and pretty much until 2013, that's all I did. And uh, what you find in that realm is just a lot of government contracts. It's a lot of those types of things. And yes, you have to go and apply for tenders and those types of things. But once you get it, it's a relationship. And sometimes people are interchangeable within a government department. If you have a good reputation, it's typically a very smooth transition. It's typically a very smooth contract to deal with.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have some trouble with that whole length of time trying to, onboard people. If people are interested in what we're doing, there's so much evidence about what I do now out there on the internet that people come to me now, and it makes it a lot easier than me going to them. But I also want to make sure that I'm investing my time appropriately in someone, A, who's going to come on board, and B, someone who's going to get with the program and work with me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's never an exact science, right? You just, I've put a lot of time and effort into people, and it's never panned out. And then I've had the opposite come true as well. I think the trick is to get to know the signs of when it's going to be a waste of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not your typical guy in the music business when it comes down to working relationships with artists, because I believe it's a two-way street, very much a two-way street. The label doesn't work for the artist, nor does the label, or nor does the artist work for the label. It's a union. It's a relationship.
A symbiotic relationship, they call it.
Yeah, and one of those that has payoffs for both parties, right? And if you're invested, if you're truly invested in what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing, right? What do you think? Don't you think there's a payday there somewhere?
There should be, but I mean, the one. So I've studied this a lot in my life. The one thing lately that
He says with vocal fry, I studied this a lot.
I have. I mean, the whole the concept of personalities and learning people's personalities and personality types and what works and what doesn't. But the concept of timing, and I don't mean that in a drummer sense, but a timing in the sense of how things come together and how things end up working or not working. That's the one part you can't, no matter how hard. And I'm not a can't, but it's the one part you can't control. It happens when it happens. A lot of people that study this stuff say that the universe tells you, whether you believe that or not. I don't know. I've become a believer in that.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about building relationships towards something that ends up having some sort of a payoff. Again, that payoff doesn't always have to be a financial reward.
Well, no, but the funny thing is, and again, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of cool people over the last 4 years, and I'm going to be doing this in another 18 days. It's going to be 4 years that we've had Barstools and Band Talk. And I've
Right.
had the opportunity to meet an awful lot of cool people. And all the people that have a lot of success, they go back right to the success principles that, you have a goal, but do you know what it is? Do you see it? Do you write it down? Do you constantly revisit it? Do you have, and I used to go, oh, that's dumb. But guess what? Every time I write the goal down and I can see it, stuff happens. It might not be what I want to have happen, but stuff does happen.
Well, we're going to get controversial tonight, and this conversation is going to continue to next week because it's going to be a nice segue into having Michael Brandvold with us next week. For those of you that don't know Michael, he's well versed with the band Kiss. He's synonymous with their website. Started the very first Kiss Online website for fans, and then that progressed to Kiss Online. And he's done a ton of marketing for Kiss over the years. So Michael's going to be on the show next week talking about this stuff. And I'm going to just touch on it tonight because, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of questions on social media about Kiss's sale of their catalog for $300 million.
And I didn't get it. I didn't get a thank you from Gene and Paul when that went down.
You put their kids through college and university.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we're going to get into this more next week. But when you look at this sale of a catalog, it's not just the sale of their catalog; it's a sale of a whole lot of other things, including their likenesses, those avatars. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's included in that deal, but when you think about things today, and you've heard Gene Simmons say this a number of times about the fact that the music industry doesn't exist anymore. It's gone the way that we knew it because gone are the days that a major record label is going to give you an advance to tour.
Well, and it's funny. He had his quote was revisited a bunch of times by a bunch of people this week. And, essentially what he did say was that, music is dead. The 15-year-old that's trying to learn how to play is not going to be able to make a living at it because of the way that the industry is now. And, to some degree, he's not wrong because it seems to get harder and harder all the time. And it's to the point now where you can't even get people to agree to help each other and work together. And, the holding of information and the ability to not share information, I don't think has ever been greater. You offer to help people and they still kind of are distrusting. And so it's a strange time.
I'm going to make a prediction right now, and we'll see if this comes to fruition, and we'll revisit it sometime down the road again. But my prediction is Gene and Paul will take that $300 million because that's essentially their company.
Yep.
And so they'll take that $300 million, and I guarantee you within a very short period of time, they're going to turn that $300 million into $3 billion.
Well, so if you go on any website and Google what their net worth is,
yeah,
individually, I think
right.
Gene's very close to $380 million. Paul's $200 million.
Well, I think their goal is, I think their next financial goal is to become billionaires.
Well, they're darn near close to it, but I mean,
$300 million invested the right way, right?
There's There's a
yields
reason
them
why
over
all these.
time a tenfold return. A tenfold return is $3 billion.
Yes, and there's a reason why all these I don't want to say aging rockers. It sounds disrespectful, but there's a reason why they're all doing this right now, right? I mean, it's kind of like the housing market. They've probably identified it's never going to be better than it is right now in terms of making these deals. Um, so why not? I mean, they've been at it
Well,
50 years.
and I've talked to some of them. Why they made those deals, and we're going to probably hear more of this from those that we're going to have on the show. Is that some of them didn't want to be bothered having to own their own stuff at the end of the day and have to literally be a record label.
Well, yeah, and a big thing in business is succession planning. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Simmons and Stanley children have made it more than clear that they're not interested in putting on the makeup and going, to another round of Kiss. So maybe this is a way for the boys to say, hey, we can still take care of our families, but we can still have Kiss out there, and we just don't have to monitor it every second of every day.
I mean, you look at guys like Neil Young, right? He sold his catalog. There's an example there. One artist told me that they did not want their family to have to deal with all that after the fact. They'd rather have the money up front now, invest that money, and because it is considered family income, this particular individual was investing in a way that there would be a nest egg for everybody.
Well, sure. They didn't take $300 million and that's it. They're never touching things with Kiss again and never. That's not the intent, right? Obviously, we don't know the nitty gritty of that deal and what's involved, and probably never will. But Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, they're many things, but they're not stupid.
Yeah, they're businessmen, and here's the thing: is that back in the day when artists got into music, I mean, let's face it, some of the greatest musicians in history died at 27.
The 27.
Right? A lot of them never figured on retiring as senior citizens.
Well, I mean, so there's interesting. Part of Gene's quote was about Kurt Cobain. He said Kurt Cobain was not a legend. He had 2 albums.
Right.
Jimi Hendrix, God love him, man. I mean, legend, a hero to many people, but he had more albums out after he passed away than he actually recorded when he was alive.
But the interesting thing about those legacies that those people leave behind, like Jim Morrison, for example, right? I mean, there's a guy who, had this weird poet way of singing music, right? And it worked. I mean, people loved it and they ate it up. I mean, who didn't listen to the Doors and fall in love with their music the first time you heard it?
Absolutely. And I mean, back to the Kiss deal. Do you picture Gene and Paul going into a boardroom? What are they going to put the Kiss? What are they going to put the Kiss logo on? That they go, that's stupid, because they put the logo on every possible thing. I mean, it could be on Tupperware. It could be, it was on coffins and condoms and pinball machines and cars and guitars and picks and comic books. And so, what's somebody going to that's dumb. I don't like that.
Well, everybody thinks it's a complete sellout, but when you actually read all the information that's out there about it, it says the details of the deal are not public.
And they probably never will be.
So here's the thing: if the details are not going to be made public, the devil is in the details, isn't it?
Well, it always is, and again. Why are they going to tell anybody besides their inner circle what it actually is?
We're going to talk about this next week with Michael. I am really interested in getting his take on this next week. It won't be one of the only things that we talk about, because Michael always drops nuggets about digital marketing and why it's so important. And that's why we're here tonight, to talk about digital marketing, as well as talking about this whole thing called return on investment, right? Where are you going to put all your eggs in one basket, or are you going to diversify? Are you going to find a way to break through, rather than, are you going to focus it all in one area, or are you going to broaden your horizons and look at other opportunities?
Yeah, that you have to be looking at that all
I
the
mean, you
time.
could be focused like a laser beam and put it all in one basket and focus like a laser beam, hoping to penetrate. But if you don't penetrate the market in that fashion, you put all that effort into one opportunity, but there may be other opportunities that actually exist if you don't diversify.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that you have to do is talk to somebody like Michael Brandvold, who's been around the block, who knows how things work. Um, I I don't know. I've learned that the the way that you get things done is you find somebody that's done something that you want to do and ask them how they've done it. And sometimes you'll like the answers, oftentimes you won't. But it's what my friend calls the pucker factor.
The pucker factor.
Well, it's kind of like you hear the answer meeting and they tell you, and it's just like, and you want to argue, but you can't, right?
Yeah, Terry Marsh's got a good point here. Got to diversify. Find ways to speak to the audience and grow. Now there's a band right there that's on our record label that other artists on the label could stand up and take notice at some of their really great best practices that they're doing as artists and as business people. They are getting their brand out there,
Yep.
right? How do you expect to build an audience of followers and people and it's showing in their streams of their music as well, right? That they're getting engagement from people by getting out there and actually engaging their audience and trying to broaden that audience and build a following because they understand that whole concept of if we can find 1,000 dedicated followers, just 1,000.
That's a
Think
magic
about it.
number. That's a
Think
magic
about it.
number.
Think about it. If you had 1,000 followers that would do what you need them to do every time you launch a new track, right?
So I do believe, and this isn't anything that I've been told, but I do believe YouTube uses that 1,000 subscriber threshold to determine who's serious and who's playing YouTube channel, right?
Right.
Because 1,000 doesn't mean that's the first gate, I guess you will, to monetization. But if you've got 1,000 subscribers and you're getting 10 cents a month, you don't have a lot of engagement, right? If you have 1,000 subscribers and you're seeing $20 and $30 and $40 a month starting to come in, you've got an engaged audience.
Right. When you look at this stuff, I'm just going to quickly go over to one of my favorite go-tos. I'm gonna talk about tonight is Spotify for artists. I use it all the time. I find the analytics in there are really great real-time analytics. So here's an interesting thing about you want to talk about growth. Okay, here's an interesting thing about growth. Michelle Ryder releases "Lie to Me" on April the 5th. Right, I'm looking at her stats right now. Okay, all-time live streams 20,626 all-time. Right, currently sitting at 12,294 streams on Spotify alone, and it's not even been out a week yet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so that's exponential growth, and a lot of that has come through engagement.
So one of the things that I learned through barstools and band talk was that people like to have their say. They like to have their say in a positive environment. You don't always get that on my page, but you get it on barstools, and I'll qualify that. And I think you know with her, we've been able to capture people because anytime that they've done anything with relation to streaming or song or whatever, there's always been some way of communicating back and saying, hey, thank you, pass it around, share it. And she's a likable person and people relate to that, and I think that's some of it. And then certainly what you're doing on the label side of things, when you have those things in tandem, it's pretty it's pretty neat what can happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of that comes through ongoing communication between you, me, and Michelle.
Yeah, no question. No
Like
question.
there's chat going on back and forth, and those of you that work with me on the label know that I rely a lot on Facebook chat because it's such an easy platform, and you get instant messages, and I get notifications right away. So when people are messaging me, I get notified right away. If I've got my phone in my hand, rest assured you're going to get a response.
Well, and I'm going to throw it out there. You created that group, which I get active on pretty quick. I didn't know it existed until you told me, and then I posted a couple things. And I will tell you, love everybody on the label that I've met so far, but I would love to see that way more active and engaged. Like anything, you have the same group of people that are weighing in and offering things up, but
Yep.
there's some people that I haven't even met yet because they haven't been on there, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything but time.
That's right. We
And
we have a private group for everybody on the record label.
right.
Yeah. And
And
it's a great place for us to meet virtually, have conversations, leave videos, leave audios, whatever, right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's again, so a guy like Terry, um, people should be hitting that guy up saying, "What the heck is it you're doing? Why is it working?" With regards to Michelle's stuff, they should be hitting you up or me up or what's going on. And I'm not saying we're so great, but look, man, I've busted and destroyed and wrecked and failed at more stuff with this thing than I even care to admit over the
Yeah.
last 4 years. But I've also figured out some things that work, and I figured out, it's not that I'm so great. It's just that I'm smart enough to listen to people that know what they're doing and know how to do it.
I like to communicate with the artists on the label because it helps me keep my mind fresh because there's a lot going on. I mean, we've got nearly 40 artists on the label now.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the dust settles in the next few months, we will have 40 artists on the label. And that's kind of where I'm maxing out, where I'm going, I can't take anybody else on because I want to be able to keep a certain level of service up for everybody that I work with on the label.
No, absolutely. But I mean, like some of the okay, so a couple of I don't want to say standouts because that's kind of like separating people, but a couple that I'm noticing, like he said, she said, they're constantly posting stuff. I see it
Yep.
every day.
Yep.
And some people might go, "Oh, well, I'm getting tired of seeing them." Well, guess what? They're getting a ton of engagement. So you might be tired of seeing them, but other people aren't. My boys, Shadow of Everest. I mean, they've got their own hot sauce.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's things like that. I mean, things don't have to cost you money. We put together something, and I'm not going to give away what it is, but everybody that can prove that they've streamed Michelle's song, we send them a little thank you, and it's just a little digital thing that the people that have got it so far have absolutely loved it because they're getting to experience something that they haven't seen yet.
Here's an interesting thing. It's interesting you mentioned he said, she said. They have a new single coming out this Friday. It's called My Everything.
Yeah.
They are a pop duo from up in the Walkerton area of Ontario. And Shane was with me, one of the very first artists on the label in a band called Coaching for Sarah. They were one of the very first artists to come out of the label. And he and I have a relationship that spans back to roughly 2016, 2017, right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was the one that came to me and said, you know what? You shouldn't run your record label like a traditional record label. You should run it differently. You should stand out and be different. You should show people what a record label really should be about.
Yeah.
And he said, one that provides a fair return for the artist in terms of the split between artist and label. One that provides support but builds a working relationship with the artist. So these were things that he planted in my head as I was first starting this whole thing, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
It's funny you mention that because just before I came on, a good friend of mine, Nicole Belfontaine, Nicole has the #1. Here I go ABC, but she's a friend. I'm going to give her the proper shout out. She's got the #1 afternoon show in my area. She's had it, I think, 4 or 5 years in a row. She's
Wow.
hilarious. And she posted something, and it was a girl, I don't know who it was, having a conversation with somebody from her record label. And the feedback was basically, we don't care if you can sing, play guitar, and you get a big chest, and that's how we're going to market you. And this girl was like, I don't want, and I'm listening to the feedback that this guy's given her. And basically, all he wants to do is just make her like every other artist that's out there. And she's sticking to her guns. But that's typically what you used to get in a traditional label, right? Like a whole lot of, okay, we got you by the short hairs because we kicked in a bunch of money. Well,
Right.
guess what? I have to pay that back at some point. So you know what I mean? And people just don't understand. We've said it many times. A traditional deal is basically a bank loan.
Yeah, and the thing is that the return on investment is not really good for the artist to invest in that business model, because when you think about it, they're not only paying back that money that they were fronted by the record label to make their first album, whatever, but they're also paying that back with interest.
Oh, no question, no question, and usually heavy interest, like the worst possible credit card you could get.
It's
Interest,
like,
right?
yeah. So consider, like, somewhere between the worst bank and a loan shark.
That would be Tony Soprano and CIBC. Oh, did I say that out loud? No, but and I
That
mean, and that's a good point, because so 4 years ago when I got in this whole thing and I had a goal, I want to start a label. And I went to a group of guys and I said, "Hey, you get a label. What should I do?" And I went and I started working with them, and good guys, but it was like I learned a lot from that, and I learned a lot of the good stuff, and I learned a lot of the bad stuff. And a lot of the bad stuff that I learned was basically you can't force an artist to do something if
Right.
they don't want to do it.
Well,
And
here, go
well,
ahead.
but the other part is, and if you want them to do it and they're not doing it because they just don't feel like it or whatever, you might have to just say, "Hey, it's been nice, and we'll talk to you later, and best of luck with your life," and move on to something else. And it's a hard thing to do, but I tell you, a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of brain power I spent on that very topic.
Well, we got our first official volunteer, and you've got to figure out how we're going to put him to work for the label. Shane Sawyer has offered to help me out. He said, "What can I do? How can I do some heavy lifting for you so that you can do more of what you do?"
Well, and you know what? That's an amazing offer, because I'll give you my volunteer speech, and without them, nothing works. And it just amazes me how, um, you'll go and you'll see an event or whatever, and they always have the chair of the event speak or the president of the event speak, and the volunteers get the golf clap, and they get the nice little thing, but they're never, hardly ever treated properly.
Yeah.
So if you find a good one, they are better than gold. Better than gold.
Yeah, I mean, I look at how hard people are working out there besides what they're doing, and yet they still have some, they still say, "Hey, look, what can I do to help you out?" Right?
Yep.
Shane, for example, I mean, he does bartending. That's his day job, and he's got the he said she said thing going on with his buddy Jessica, and they're playing gigs all over the place. Mostly within short driving distance of where they live, but they're
What what
playing the
what
they
what's the bar that he bartends at?
it used to be Uncle Joe's Cabin, but I'm not sure where it is now.
Is that in the
But
Walkerton area?
yeah, it's like I think it's in Hanover.
Okay.
It's like a roadhouse type thing, but I think he's bartending these days. And he's always worked in he's worked in the service industry for a long time, but started out in the banking industry, oddly enough.
Wow.
And then decide he wanted to really make music his full-time thing. And coaching for Sarah took off pretty good as an indie band, and then there were a whole lot of other things that happened within the band, but they had a good start, man. They had a full album out, and we're working on a bunch of singles. And then they decided to pack it in, and then Shane met this gal that he works with. He worked with at I don't know, one of the Roadhouse restaurants in Hanover, and they started doing this duet thing. She sings like Broadway stuff,
Okay.
and that's sort of her background to singing. She sings in theater and stuff like that. So Sean thought that'd be kind of a cool thing, doing a duo with her.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing what they're pushing out, and it's cool because they're trying things, they're doing things, and they're getting views, but more importantly, they're getting engagement because people are making comments and shares, and that's really, like Michael Brandvold, God love him. When he finally got the engagement thing into my head, and I finally started understanding it, things started happening.
Well, here's an interesting thing. So I'm gonna talk about that because I don't think Shane knows this yet, but they now have 100 dedicated followers on Spotify.
Bam.
Now, if you don't know how hard it is to get your first 100 followers on Spotify, it's like getting your first 100 subscribers on YouTube.
It's probably even harder, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
People go on there and they stream, and for whatever reason, they miss the follow button. I don't know
Yeah.
why that is.
One click.
It's
Click
like
me.
YouTube sometimes makes you jump through hoops of fire. Spotify is so simple to become a follower.
I'm going to ask everybody tonight to share out on social media. Go to our artist music on Spotify. You can find our artists on our website, indietunes.com. Go to the website. A few things are still being updated on the website. That's one of the things that I've got to get done. And that's putting all the links to Spotify and iTunes for all of our artist music up off the website. I've decided to do that. When I first started putting all the music on the website, I made a conscious decision not to do that because my goal was really to make the website a download and streaming service for independent music only that supplies label services. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I decided to do was put the music exclusively up there, and hoping that people would go to the website and download the music right off our website, right, and not go the traditional route. So we're trying to create an alternative path for people to go to where they want to find just nothing but independent music. They don't get a algorithmic suggestion about what they should look at. They can just go on our website and look around. It's fully interactive. You can stream our artist music for free off our website, which I know I've got some updating to do. There's some new singles we've got to upload there. We ran into some problems a while back because we're only allowed to post so much music off our website in terms of single releases or album releases. So until our web host upgrades that part of the website, we have some limitations we're working with right now. So it's not an easy go, but we're getting there, because what I found out is that, well, I can only have 100 of one item. So it's either 100 singles or 100 albums, or I could have 100 playlists. But here's the difference. A playlist can have 500 tracks on it. An album can have a maximum of 30 tracks, and a single is a maximum of 5 tracks. So it's like an EP. And you can only have 100 of those. So with us having 40 artists on there constantly releasing music, guess what happens to the single problem?
It gets choked out.
Yeah, it jams everything up really quick. So what we've done is we're starting to put the artist music on playlists, and we're now featuring all the new release singles under a feature tab on the website. Mm-hmm. So if you want to see all the latest releases by our artists, you can just hit that one tab and it takes you to all the latest releases. Now, is that updated yet? No, I've got to get my ass in gear and work on that. But it's one of those things. And again, Terry Marsh from Boiler Beach has offered to help me with the website. Mm-hmm. So here's another volunteer, another person who's extremely busy with their music, extremely busy with work and whatnot, is still offering some of his time to help me out. That is the kind of relationships we need to have as not only as artists, but also in an independent music community.
Yes, but something that's very important, and Mr. Jason McCorson, who produces my podcast, just posted today that he's got yet his next video by an artist that he's got through working with Rim Shots, Barstools and Band Talk, and then working with artists and getting referred. And again, that was my goal for Jason when he came on board. I said, I have nothing. Like, there's nothing here. I don't
Right.
care. Whatever. People saw how talented he was. He's off doing his own thing, and that was a goal. And that's the volunteering. Like, you get caught up in this exposure thing. Exposure to me basically is an endless cycle of never get paid.
In spite of that success that Jason's having, he's still working with you on your podcast.
100%.
And why is that?
Jason he's a creative guy who just loves doing that type of work. He's dedicated to bar stools because look, he's a smart guy. In addition, he's a bass player in a band called McCarty. Him and his friend Sean play in a band. They're a duo. They play all over. They're a lot of fun. He up until they just announced that they're not going to do it, but he was part of running a huge festival down here. He does the video stuff. He books entertainment at a local Legion. He does. I mean, plus. He's a creative guy that is smart enough to realize that all these things done properly will lead him to success in other things, and that's what's happening for him.
Right.
And
well, if you guys want to support an independent music community and what we're trying to build here at Indie Tunes Records, because again, the goal is to take this beyond a label. We want to make it an independent service for downloading and streaming exclusively for independent music, where your music will not be buried under algorithms. People that are interested in independent music, finding something that's not on the mainstream, will not have to search for your music. They can just find you, right?
Yep.
And because you have your socials, they can share their pages. We have a social share page on our website where every artist can share their music page off our website. Isn't that great?
It's fantastic. And that's really social media, I guess, at its core, right? In the old days here in Halifax, the Halifax Chamber of Commerce that I used to work for in early 2000s, but well before my time, they had a bar. They opened a bar, and the idea was every Friday, people would go there and network, have a couple drinks, exchange a few business cards.
Yep.
It unfortunately ended up failing because there was too many insurance guys or too many whatever, and they were all kind of intermingling amongst themselves. But as all those things have a cycle, but really it gets back to networking again, and what networking is. You're at the grocery store, you say hi to people. That's networking.
Yeah.
People don't understand. It's not this big creepy weird thing. I do it all the time. I'll just make small talk in the line, and I'll make a joke. And I had a friend with me one day, and they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did that." Well, they engaged, they had fun, we laughed. A guy behind me too deep was like, "Oh, you're the guy that's on the TV show." Something always happens when you open your mouth and you're polite and you say hi, right?
Right. So here's the thing, okay? And I want to get to this whole return on investment thing as we sort of head towards the upper side of the show tonight. Is that when you think about return on investment, you've got to look at everything that you put into something and what you're hoping to get out of that in terms of a return. So when we look at the Kiss deal, for example, $300 million based on future earnings for that band, right? If you think about that and you think about where you are as an artist currently, what you're doing, what kind of following you have, what kind of engagement you have, people in terms of people engaging with your music, all those things considered, it's going to take a long time to make a lot of digital music sales where it's going to make a financial impact.
Yes. And I think, when Gene does a whole music is dead or rock is dead, people get upset. And I think what he really means is the genre is a genre, or the genre, it's not dead. It's not people not doing it. The model that he wound up making a very, very, very good living at. It's just not there anymore because it's changed. You know, there's the whole. There was a thread going around on my page yesterday about a guy basically breaking down for, and I wish I had it in front of me, but essentially it was, a lesson in how much it costs to be a musician, and the venue owner should understand it. And I got it right away, and I shared it, and I didn't say anything. And I agree with that. However, we as musicians sometimes, and I don't want to get on my soapbox here because people get mad at me when I do, but we as musicians allow it to happen, right? Because if we give our rate and then somebody says, well, that's too much, and we go, well, okay, well, what is it? We're not prepared to walk away. We're prepared to renegotiate to whatever the level that was going to be given. And somebody says, well, I want a player, I need the money. Well, that's fine. Just understand where the bar has been lowered is probably where it's going to stay. And that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, right? Is through us as musicians being put in situations where we've been forced to take bad deals. That's where it stays. It never gets better. I played a show 3 weeks ago, and the guy paid me, and he goes, "Isn't this funny? I'm paying you the same amount that we made 10 years ago." And I'm like, "No, it's not really funny because it's the way things are, right?" And
Yeah,
again,
and that is one of the downsides of the music. I don't want to use the word industry, but in terms of what's happened in terms of entertainment, public entertainment, uh, it's devalued what artists do. And you think about all things that go into it. And I was looking at the one post. I just want to talk about Terry's comment here really quick. I always say, do nothing, nothing happens. It's when we take the step to engage that things happen.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, what a great comment. And the thing is that, this level of engagement that I'm talking about has to be a two-way street. And I'll give you an example of it. You and I've been involved in this. You and I've had conversation with people, and some of those resulted in me having conversation with people who might be been interested to come on the record label. And at the end of the day, they go, "Well, I understand all that marketing stuff, and I don't think that you really have maybe nothing to offer me, or you don't even get back to me and tell me that. You just
Yep.
I basically don't hear from you again, right?
Yep.
And the thing is, if I don't hear from you again, and then I see you out there repeating the same mistakes you were making before, the things that are glaring to me, but not glaring to you, I think, if only, if only. It's kind of like that whole idea that by having another pair of eyes on it, now you have that 2020 vision.
Hence why I'm wearing my glasses tonight that I refuse to believe that I need. I in that case, I had a conversation with a I'll say very successful, famous person. And they equated it to, if you choose to not listen to somebody and you go off and do it yourself, you have a bad day, a bad day, a bad day. You start going, I should have listened. Then you have a good day. And all the bad days kind of go away because you start believing that, oh my God, I did that all myself.
Right.
And it
Right.
goes up a little bit. And it's like the game Snakes and Ladders, right? You go to number 5, you're up to 22, and you go over 3, and you're back down to 2. It's because they didn't listen, and there's almost a pride thing involved where, oh man, I messed up, I don't want to go back, and I
Right.
get that. But it's that hamster wheel that you got to get off. It's everybody goes through it. Everybody
Well,
goes through it.
here's an interesting thing. So right now I'm working on about 5 tracks that I'm mastering for Brent Durner from My Wicked Twin. And I don't even know how I got into mastering these tracks for him, because he usually has somebody else master the tracks. But him and I have talked a great deal about mastering, and what I've done with some of the Helix stuff, some of the early Helix stuff when I remastered it. And he likes what I'm doing. So he's like, okay, I got these like 5 tracks, right? And we got to do a kick-ass job of mastering them because they're being put in a movie repository.
Yeah.
So Brent's been approached to have these tracks put out there for the potential of them being in a movie. Now, if that goes the way that it's supposed to go, and we get one of these tracks gets picked for a movie, we're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, and that came through. I don't know. I don't even know if someone that reached out to him and said, you know, we're looking for these track. We're looking for tracks. Do you have stuff along this line? And they found, I believe it was I'd Hide a Body for You.
Yep.
And there was some stuff that they liked about the tracks, and they really liked the track enough that they said, "Oh, what else you got? What else do you have?" So we've been back and forth. Here's a collaboration piece, though. Right?
But the first time I heard that song, I was just like, it was, oddly enough, Brent sent it to me, and I was sitting in a Walmart parking lot. Like, literally, if I went through the back of the Walmart, I'd run into Sidney Crosby's house where he grew up in Cole Harbour. And I'm listening to that tune, and I sent him a text. I said, "Man, this sounds like a movie soundtrack." It's got. I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, going like, I pictured like cops running up and a big shootout going on, and it's got that vibe to it.
And then the latest one, Happily Never After.
Yeah.
I mean, that one could be a soundtrack in a horror flick.
Well, here's the thing about Brent. I wish people would really. I mean, I know this business is dumb sometimes, but there's a guy really that has nothing to prove. Like, people should be knocking on his door. Like, he puts one or two of those songs out, and it's like he's got a closet full of that stuff. Like, just ask him for it, right? And yet, everybody's playing this game of, I don't even know what it is. It's just so annoying. Like that, he could be writing that stuff like crazy.
So here's an interesting thing. I gotta tell you this because it's really freaking funny. So I got these songs that I'm working on with him right now. These are not even songs that are published yet.
Yeah.
Okay. These are unpublished songs that we're submitting for these movie soundtracks, right? And it's just freaking hilarious. So like, I'm just going to give you a quick example here, if I can find it. Oh, it's in this drive right here. So here are some of the songs titles. Okay, Play with Cake, Lover Girl, Love Is What I Lean On, Between Saturday and Sunday. He's going to make a day between Saturday and Sunday. And then there's another tune called Something's Always Never Fittin'. I mean, these are songs on a pop album, right, that he's writing, and the pop album is going to be released under a fictitious name.
Well, now, here's this is funny. I'm about to show you something here, and you're going to yell at me for a second. But can you believe, where is it? Can you believe this handsome young lad right here?
That's right, Brent Turner. Yeah,
comes up with stuff like that, and you know what? I can, because he, as I've got to know Brent, he's got a great sense of humor. I've never written with him. He sent Michelle a couple things, but I just think that the mind works in interesting ways.
Go to our website at IndieTunes.com and listen to a remastered version of Brent's song, Billy Oxygen. One of the best, quick, fast songs I've ever heard, and the drums are just insane on it. Have you ever listened to that song?
The
drums 100%. In it?
Yep.
The drums in that song are just freaking insane.
Yep.
And the song, the drums stand out in that song with the vocals. It's such a great tune, Mm-hmm. And Brent wrote that song, and he found the name Billy Oxygen was written on a bathroom wall at some bar they were playing at. And he saw the word Billy Oxygen. He goes, that'd make a really good title for a song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, splitting the atom sometimes, right?
There you go. I mean, you never know where a song is going to come from, right?
This is it.
And what a great great way, is this great story behind that song and how that song was written. But it's interesting because that's that collaborative process that we work on. And he's like, well, I can pay you for mastering those tracks. I'm like, no. What's the other thing you say? Contra? Isn't that what you say? Contra?
Contra, it's a real word, man. It's a
Okay,
real
so
word.
what does Contra stand for?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the acronym is, but essentially, I learned about it in the event world, not through the Iran Contra thing of the '80s. But so essentially, if you have an event and you have to pay money for something, but you don't have money to pay for something, but you can give something up like advertising or tickets or whatever, it's a swap, right? So it's
Right.
basically a non-cash valuable item that will remove a line item from your budget and bring value to somebody else. So as an example,
Mm.
I need my album mastered and I don't have the money to do it, but Ken's got a mastering service. Well, I tell you what, you do it for me, and what I will do is I will promote your mastering service like nobody's business and help get you more business. And essentially, the deal that Jason and I have had since he came on board Barstools is a contra deal.
FWB, baby. FWB.
FWB.
Yeah, friends with benefits.
Oh, well, that, that sounds creepy.
It is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it truly is that. I mean, there's that trade-off thing. It's like, okay, if we're going to agree that this, I mean, what's the point in him paying me money and then me paying him money back? Like, what's the point in that?
Well, on both sides, it shows there's value there. I mean, I get the idea. The problem the problem becomes is when it's one sided. So when it's like somebody takes, but then they never promote, they never give back, they never and that's a different sort of thing. I've been involved in that before too, and it's usually me that never winds up benefiting from it. But guess what? If it was my choice, I only have myself to blame for it.
If everybody would just know my bottom line every year, okay? I mean, my bottom line is I ain't making a lot of money doing this, so I am clearly not motivated by the money.
Well, there's that, but I mean, you find out what your motivation is, and I mean, again, it gets down to goals, right? I mean, eventually you do want to make money. You're not going to do it just for, I used to work for a company, and the owner used to call it missionary work. He used to call networking missionary work.
Right.
And I always thought that was an interesting title. He viewed it as, he's worked his butt off to basically get to a point where he doesn't have to come into the office every day. So why is he going to throw me 2 or 3 leads of people that he knows? That's missionary work.
And I think one of the reasons why we're looking at doing what we're doing, going forward, because it's fractions of pennies per stream. Everybody knows that if your music's getting streamed, you're only making fractions of pennies per stream. You're not making a lot of money.
Yep.
But the thing is that those fractions of pennies add up over time.
No question.
Right. And the other opportunity is that if we were to get artists to post their pages, their music pages on our website and push traffic towards a website, it does a number of things. It builds the brand. It gets music directly more in front of the general public. It gets more activity on the website, gives us better search engine optimization. What happens as a result of that is that we're more known across the internet. People start looking and paying attention to what we're doing, and they go, "Oh, I want to join that."
All right. Can I say something to pat I don't mean to pat myself on the back.
Yeah,
However,
yeah,
hopefully people will understand this. So Michelle's new video so far in 11 days has 10,000 views.
that's right.
That's 10,000 views to Indie Tunes Records YouTube page.
Yep.
Had I basically said, well, I'm going to post that to Barstools and Van Talk and give you a link or a tag, I would have got the 10,000 views and I would have got all those watchable hours and not the Indie Tunes. So knowing that this is a true partnership, I didn't do that. And we didn't do that. It makes more sense to have it on the Indie Tunes label because you're doing the work to push it out there. And so that's kind of the trust and the relationship that you're looking to have happen.
It took me a long time to get that, because I think originally people were a bit reluctant to move to that direction where they thought they were giving up something. What they were actually doing, yes, there's a give there, that they're giving us content. But because they're all contributing to the content on our YouTube channel, it creates more regular, more high quality content on one channel. Right?
100%. And what my point is yes, you're right. I am giving up content because
Yep.
10,000 views, okay, that's great. But with the amount of engagement, for somebody that's running a YouTube channel, that's significant. However, bigger picture makes more sense for me to say, yeah, I'm going to take that and put it over there because I'm trying to help you build the brand. We're trying to prove that it works. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if I can do that, have some faith that what Ken's doing.
Well,
if you do it, you're not going to be left out in the cold.
Well, here's the thing. We're actually collecting royalties off those tracks because remember, those tracks are encoded.
Yeah.
Those tracks have the ISRCs for the songs encoded to them. So we are able to recuperate, revenue off of YouTube, a different type of revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not just ad revenue. It's for the plays of the song on the YouTube platform. We're getting paid per play on the YouTube platform through royalties collection, right? So while that song has reached 12,000 plays on Spotify, you've got an additional revenue stream of 10,000 plays on YouTube.
Yep.
And YouTube pays more than most streaming services do, including iTunes, which is one of the highest paying ones.
Yes, they do.
So there's another return on investment.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So when you look at artists are doing, and the thing is, as our YouTube channel becomes monetized, and we're going to defer to some of your expertise around that, Sean, because we're going to share 75% of the revenue that comes off that YouTube channel with the artist. So any monetization, any AdSense, anything where we're making revenue off that is going back to the artist at 75 cents on the dollar because they gave us the content in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We want to reward that. We want to find a way to financially reward that down the road. Is it going to take some time? Yeah, it's going to take some time. But if we get the people going to our YouTube channel, now we got 3 revenue streams, Spotify being one of them, another one being YouTube, another one being our website. Now we've got 3 revenue streams that we're earning off fractions of pennies. So now that one fraction of penny was multiplied by 3 because we now have 3 separate revenue streams. So this is like taking a snowball and rolling it in the snow when you got packing snow. And what do you end up with? A great big ball. And you go, oh, I'm going to make a snowman.
Or you do what some of my friends did, punch me in the face and take off with the big thing and leave me with nothing. Right? But that always works out.
So, I mean, here is, tonight I feel like we just scratched the tip of the iceberg with this. And we're going to probably continue with this when we do more content shows, because I think it makes a lot of sense for people to understand that ROI means return on investment, but there are different ways that we invest ourselves in what we're doing,
mm-hmm.
right? And there's different expectations in terms of what those payoffs are going to be, what those returns on those investments are going to be. Some of them have short-term returns. Some of them are going to have long-term returns,
mm-hmm.
right? So you think about, again, I'll just come back to this in closing tonight. KISS sold their catalog for $300 million, and that's based on, future earnings and what it would take for them to earn over a certain period of time. And I'm going to say that $300 million would have taken probably 10 years of streaming services to get that 300 million, maybe 10 years. They don't got, Gene and Paul don't have 10 years.
Oh, something tells me that Gene and Paul will be here in 10 years doing something.
Probably. But the thing is, now they've got that money up front to do an additional something with it.
Yep.
So God knows what their next business venture is going to be. I know Simmons is out touring. He's been seen hanging with Ace Frehley. So I don't know what the heck's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know.
And we'll talk about some of that down the road. We might be having Ace Frehley on the show, believe it or not.
That would be great, Curly. And listen, all joking aside,
I'm gonna say you were the lead guitar player for Kiss, right? And you'd be saying, "No, I'm a plumber."
Yeah. Well,
oh man, I digress. Well, listen, it's been great chatting with you, Sean, tonight. Hope everybody's learned something. The tip jar is right there. You can scan that little QR code with your phone. You can find a way to support us financially. You can give us a toonie, a loony, whatever you want to do. Put it in the tip jar. You can buy stars now, apparently. If you want to do that while you're following us. So a great way to support us from a financial point of view. It does things like improving our website and a whole bunch of other great things. Sean from the podcast Bar Stools and Band Talk, Rim Shots with Sean. Watch it on Facebook. Well, you won't watch it on Facebook. You're going to watch it on YouTube. You'll see Sean post all about every show that he does, though, on Facebook, on social media, so you can see what whets your appetite, what might interest you. He interviews a lot of interesting people.
I got a couple really good ones coming up. I'm going to be doing it while on the road tomorrow, and I'm excited.
So that was the little bit of a secret. All right.
I tell you, one of them's a legend, and I mean a legend.
Looking forward to hearing about that. So post that on social media. Look forward to that, folks. I am Kenny from TUNZ Records. You are not. This is the Indie Show. Have a great week, everybody. See you next week with Michael Brandfold.